Sapakaya ca dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine Sapakaya ca dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine Avatara varishtaya Ramakrishna Te Namah Asato ma sadgamaya Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya Mrityorma mritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us bow down to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God incarnate. Let us pray to Him to lead us from unreal to the real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. Today's topic, Sri Ramakrishna. Whose birthday we will be observing on February 28. Sri Ramakrishna's advent is unique. As Lord Krishna said in the Gita, whenever there is decline of dharma, I will be born, I will incarnate myself for re-establishing dharma. And Sri Ramakrishna himself said, who was Sri Ramachandra in Treta Yuga, who was Lord Krishna in Dwapar Yuga, has now come as Sri Ramakrishna in this age. Sri Ramakrishna advocated harmony of religions. He wanted people to live in peace and harmony. He removed all confusion regarding different religions. He pointed out that each religion takes you to the same goal. He practiced all religions and he taught to the world the oneness of everything. God is one, interpreted in many ways. Ekam sad vipra bahuda vadanti. An incarnation of God, His life and His message displays a vitality that defies and eludes the ravages of time. Never does His charm fade out or His voice trail off. Sri Rama, Sri Krishna, Buddha, Zoroaster, Christ and Chaitanya, each one of them has proved his immortal presence and inspiration in the lives of millions of spiritual seekers. When they lived and moved as mortals, people heard them with awe and wonder, because they spoke with authority and not as the scribes. Death could lay its cold hands on their physical frame only, but not on their divine charm and masterful voice. Sri Ramakrishna says, he has come to give direction to the people in this spiritual life. Sri Ramachandra says, it is my vow to bestow freedom from fear on all creatures, to anyone seeking refuge and saying even once, I am yours. Sri Ramachandra is giving that assurance. Just say I am yours, you will see how it will work. Several centuries have passed on since these words were spoken, but today a devotee may hear them and immediately a transformation can come over him. He takes refuge in Sri Rama, finds peace, finds joy and enlightenment. Lord Krishna says in the Gita, which have a similar relevance and appeal. He says, Sarvadharman parityajya mahamekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshayeshyami ma shuchaha. Lord Krishna says, give up all dharmas. Come to me alone for shelter. I will deliver you from all sins. Don't grieve. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yudhyaja. In another place, Lord Krishna says, constantly remember me and fight. That means, if you remember me and do your duties, you will be saved from all dangers. You will reach me. That was the assurance of Lord Krishna. Again he says in chapter 11, Nimitta matram bhava savyasachin. O Arjun, be thou an instrument only. If you feel that way, then you must know that Lord will take care of everything about your life. These utterances were not addressed to Arjun alone on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. They were addressed to the sincere spiritual seekers of all times and climes. That's why they strike responsive chords in our hearts and we listen to them with remarkable results. Lord Buddha said to his disciples, with his dying breath, you must rely upon yourselves and you must be your own lamps to show you the path. Work out your own salvation with diligence. These sayings of Buddha enthuse many aspirants. Jesus Christ's words stir the spiritually inclined persons deeply and make them take up their crosses and follow the Lord. They should sell all they have and give it to the poor to become humble and servants of the Galilean. Likewise, Moses, Zoroaster, Muhammad and Chaitanya have given their profound messages. Sri Ramakrishna, born in 1836, lived up to 1886, that means in the period of 50 years, he gave the life-saving message and he transformed many spiritual people. He made people to take up the higher way of life. All the previous incarnations and prophets, Rama, Krishna, Christ, Muhammad, Chaitanya, they became living and vibrant in Sri Ramakrishna. Swami Vivekananda pointed out that Sri Ramakrishna is a reformed and remodeled manifestation of all the past great epoch makers in religion. Longing for God came on him like a tornado. He never wasted his time even a moment. He became fully conscious of his goal in the life. That was to realize God. That is, to see God face to face. So he totally dedicated his life towards that goal. For 12 long years, Sri Ramakrishna went on realizing the various facets of divine reality in breathless succession. He didn't know when it was day, when the sun set. Sleep and hunger forsook him. He was only aware of a raging fire of God's hunger within his breast. He practiced renunciation, practiced self-control and humility to limits normally impossible. His devotion and adherence to truth were phenomenal. His intense love for God unprecedented. Similarly, his realizations were extensive and surpassing. Every hour and day brought him ecstatic visions of the transcendental reality. gods and goddesses appeared before him and soon disappeared in his body. The prophets and divine incarnations on whom he meditated showed up in celestial forms and merged in him. He came to live on a plane where a thin partition separated him from the Absolute or Brahman. And the slightest divine stimulus used to tear the partition and plunge him into Samadhi. For the rest of his life, he taught earnest seekers, trained a band of disciples, transmitted his power to them, imperceptibly initiated a major religious renaissance, and left his mortal frame. Swami Vivekananda, the foremost disciple, he said, referring to Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna is a force. You should not think that his doctrine is this or that, but he is a power living even now in his disciples and working in the world. I saw him growing in his ideas. He is still growing. Sri Ramakrishna was both a Jivan Mukta, liberated while alive, while in this life of the world, and an Acharya, the spiritual master. A spiritual force gathers strength even when its physical center disappears. Sri Ramakrishna is that dynamic spiritual force. He wept for God, the mother, as nobody had done. After realizing God in all his aspects, Sri Ramakrishna wept again. But this second weeping had a different meaning. The Divine Mother had revealed to his inner eye that she had many pure-souled young disciples. Why were they not coming? He was so restless to meet those disciples, to transfer all his spiritual power to them. He had become fed up dealing with the worldly minded. He longed to talk to the young eagle souls whose feet never touched the muddy ground of the world, and pass on to them the treasures he had gathered. The yearning he felt for them was great, and it spilled over in the evenings as a piteous cry from the roof of the building in the garden. Oh, where are you all? So, Sri Ramakrishna was very eager to give his experience of the absolute reality. Sri Ramakrishna's whole life if you study his life thoroughly from the beginning to the end, you find it is religion in practice. He defined the purest form of religion through his own practical experience. Religion is defined as the manifestation of divinity already in the person. Religion is being and becoming. Religion is realization. Sri Ramakrishna, he was not opposed to science. Let us by all means learn the valuable truths of science. Material prosperity and progress are quite necessary for human welfare. But they have their use and meaning only when the virtues like sympathy and forbearance, love and peace reign supreme in the hearts of people. And these virtues baffle scientific analysis and transcend the limits of purely ethical codes of conduct. They belong to the realm of spirit. They are to be well established through spiritual culture. To Sri Ramakrishna, religion was not simply a theory or a dogma. He wanted to find out himself the worth of every religion in the world. His whole life was dedicated to achieve this truth underlying all religions. He strictly followed the necessary disciplines of the respective religions. Now he would be a Muslim fakir with appropriate rituals, attitudes and garb, and now a Christian neophyte stricken with a sense of sin and crying for salvation. There was nothing of mere pose or mere imagination in all this. The astounding feature in Sri Ramakrishna is the genuine spirit of research which he evinced throughout his life. He arrived at the truth of every religion he practiced. He was a Shakta among the Shaktas. He was a Vaishnava among the Vaishnavas, a Muslim among the Muslims, and a Christian among the Christians. By so doing, he made himself a channel through which the infinite power flowed with unalloying clarity. Sri Ramakrishna was the Messiah of spiritual democracy. We are all very fond of democracy, and Sri Ramakrishna, for the first time, is advocating spiritual democracy. A genuine Catholicity pervaded Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual consciousness. His spiritual realization included the wholeness of divinity and the allness of humanity. His mysticism proves that not only supermen may attain the highest, but even a common man may unfold his divinity. His methods are unique. He doesn't strike He does not denounce by gentle, unaggressive and unpretentious means. Sri Ramakrishna clarifies the whole atmosphere of doubt and fear and fills the mind with positive thoughts. Sri Ramakrishna demonstrates the great truth that every faith has its saving power, each its divine inspiration, a spiritual attraction and beauty. He felt in actual life the redeeming power of faiths and envisaged the invisible but eternal Church of God and the eternal religion of spirit in place of denominational churches and their credos. Sri Ramakrishna has given the gospel of spirit more than any theological creed or any philosophical theory. He stressed the movement of spirit and its expression through the finer rhythm of the heart, the diviner movement of the will, and the luminous intuition of intellect. His famous dictum, Jato mat tato pat. As many faiths, so many paths, has proved, as it is destined to prove for all times to come, they really represent Catholicism, emancipating us from religious bigotry and intolerance. Sri Ramakrishna was the herald of the unity of spirit and matter. He realized that spirit and matter are one. It is even wrong to mention two names, two words. Matter is the expression of spirit. It is a symbol of spirit. Nay, more, it is spirit itself. Sri Ramakrishna discovers the natural gravitation of life to spirit. It is this fine spiritual appeal that makes Sri Ramakrishna's life at once an attraction and a wonder. Sri Ramakrishna is the great apostle of spiritual struggle for human liberty. Of Sri Ramakrishna's teachings, it may justly be said that from his lips came the religion that spiritualizes philosophy. There is no difference between the doctrines of Sri Ramakrishna and the words of Saint Matthew. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Sri Ramakrishna's life inspires us to hush all notes of discord by emphasizing the central unity and making room for all the varieties of creeds that add to the beauty, richness, strength and grandeur of the house of religion. His life inspires us to remain strictly loyal to our individual churches, and yet embrace the followers of all other creeds as fellow pilgrims on the path of blessedness. His life appears to be a symbolic suggestion of a new era when all sect-bound thoughts will be released, all narrowness and bigotry will disappear, when religion will be comprehended in terms of universal humanity, and all the varying notes issuing out of the different creeds of the world will combine to form a magnificent and undreamt of harmony of religions. Once Sri Ramakrishna visited Brahma Samaj in Calcutta. That was a very great movement at that point of time. Keshav Chandra Sen was a great leader. He was very much influenced by the Western thought. Sri Ramakrishna would call them modern Brahmajnanis. In course of his talks with the devotees, he referred to a signboard that said, "The people belonging to other faiths are not allowed to come in." That is the signboard put in front of the Brahma Samaj complex. Sri Ramakrishna was even told by Swami Vivekananda not to go to Brahma Samaj. But Sri Ramakrishna went. He wanted to correct them. He wanted to show them the right way. He wanted to give hope and inspiration to them. So he said, that attitude is not correct. We are all calling on the same God. There need not be any jealousy or malice. Some say God is formless, and some people say God has form. What does it matter? Let one man meditate on God with form, if he believes in form. Let another meditate on the formless deity, if he doesn't believe in form. But dogmatism is not good. It is not good to feel that his religion alone is true and all other religions are false. It is all right to hold on to the view that his religion is right, but he really doesn't know about other religions, so he should not comment over them. One cannot know the true nature of God unless one realizes Him. The great Kabir, he used to say, God with form is my mother, the formless is my father. Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Shaktas, Shaivas, Vaishnavas, the Brahmajnanins of the time of the Rishis and the Brahmajnanins of modern times, referring to Brahma Samaj, they are all seeking the same goal. A mother prepares dishes to suit the stomachs of her children. Suppose she has 5 children and a fish is brought for the food. She doesn't cook pilau or kalia for all of them. All don't have the same power of digestion. So she prepares a simple stew for some, but she loves all her children equally. Sri Ramakrishna said further that he loved all the preparations. Now Sri Ramakrishna emphatically said to them, the reality arrived at after realization of the truth, practicing different religions. He said, God has made different religions. Why? Because to suit different aspirants, times and countries. All doctrines are only so many paths. But a path is by no means God Himself. Indeed, one can reach God if one follows any of the paths with wholehearted devotion. Suppose there are errors in the religion that one has accepted. If one is sincere and earnest, God Himself will correct those errors. God, to whom the whole world belongs, takes care of that. But dogmatism is not good. Then Sri Ramakrishna gives a story of chameleon. One day a man was walking in the woods. He saw a chameleon on a tree, a kind of lizard. Then he said to his friends, oh, he saw a red lizard. He was firmly convinced that it was nothing but red, because he literally saw. Another person, after visiting the said tree, reported that he saw not the red one, he saw the green lizard. Why is talking that it was red? Probably he had color blindness. He was firmly convinced that it was nothing but green. There was no confusion about the fact. He was very much true in his assertion. Then they began to debate upon whether it is red, green, yellow, etc. What color it was. There was a man who lived under the tree. He told them, why are you unnecessarily quarreling and having heated discussions for nothing? What both of you have said is true. It is red, it's also green. But the fact is that the creature is sometimes red, sometimes green, sometimes yellow, and sometimes has no color at all. Just like that. Then they were awakened to the reality. God has been described in the Vedas as both with attributes and without. Sagun Brahman, Nirguna Brahman, and so on. Some describe him as without form only. If you say that way, it is one-sided. That doesn't matter. If one knows one of his aspects truly, he will be able to know his other aspects too. All religions and all paths call upon their followers to practice the spiritual path, and they are calling on this same God. One should not show disrespect to any religion or religious opinion. It is same God who is called Satchidananda Brahman in the Vedas, Satchidananda Krishna in the Puranas, Satchidananda Shiva in Tantras. It is one and the same Satchidananda. According to the Vedanta, there is no incarnation of God. The Vedantists say that Rama and Krishna are but two waves in the ocean of Satchidananda. Brahman alone exists. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Everything is Brahman. In reality, there are not two, there is only one. A man may call on God by any name. If he is sincere in his prayer, he will surely reach him. He will succeed if he has longing. Sri Ramakrishna explains that God of all religions is the same through beautiful analogies. He takes the example of water. Some people call it water, some call it as vari, some call it as aqua, some call it as jal, some of them call it as pani. But the same water is called by different names. Even so, the one Satchidananda, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, is invoked by some as God, by some as Allah, by some as Hari, and by some as Shiva, and by others as Brahman. He gives another example. Suppose you go to a potter's store. What you find there? There are various vessels of different shapes and different forms. Pots, jars, dishes, plates, varieties. But all are made of the same clay. The material is the same. The forms are different. They look differently, but the essence is same. All is made up of clay. So, God is one, but He is worshipped in different ages and climes, under different names and aspects. Then he gives the example of gold. Various ornaments are made out of gold. Each ornament is different, its form is different, its shade is different, it looks beautiful, every form has its own beauty. Not only that, every form has got distinct name. Every ornament has got its own name. Whatever it be, the substance is same. What is that? Gold. Same gold appearing in different forms, having different names. But the essence is same. Even so, different countries worship different forms with different names according to different conceptions. Some may like to regard God as Father, and others as Mother. Some of them regard God as friend, and others as beloved. and some again as the innermost treasure of their heart, and others as their sweet child. But it's always one and the same God that is worshipped in all these diverse relations. Sri Ramakrishna explains through simple similes how different religions or different pathways to reach the same God. There is a river. There are many bathing places along the shore bearing different names. One can go to any of these places to take a bath or fetch water. It is ridiculous to quarrel with one another, claiming one's God to be the only one to be used for such purpose. Similarly, there are many gods that lead to the water of the fountain of eternal bliss. Every religion of the world is one God. Whatever the faith we profess or the method we adopt, if we do it with pure heart and with devotion, we can attain God. But one should not say that he means of a ladder or a bamboo or a staircase or a rope. So too, there are many ways to approach God, and each religion in the world shows one of the ways. That's very important to know. Sri Ramakrishna explains realization clears all confusion about God. With sincerity and earnestness, one can realize God through all religions. The Vaishnavas will realize God, and so will the Shaktas, the Vedantis, and the Brahmos. The Muslims and Christians will realize Him too. All will certainly realize God. Only condition for the realization of God is one should be earnest, one should be sincere. Thus Sri Ramakrishna has established harmony among the religions. That was the greatest contribution Sri Ramakrishna did to the world harmony. Sri Ramakrishna has said many things, has given most wonderful teachings. They are all recorded in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. To remember some of them, Sri Ramakrishna said, useless is the study of the scriptures if one has no discrimination and dispassion. One cannot find God unless one is endowed with these. What is that? Discrimination and dispassion. Viveka, Vairagya. What is discrimination? Discrimination is knowledge of what is eternal and what is non-eternal, and devotion to the eternal, which is God. It is knowledge that the Atman is separate from the body. What is dispassion? Dispassion is non-attachment to the objects of the sense. Then Sri Ramakrishna said, who is the true hero? It is he who can discipline his mind by devotional exercises while living in the world. He gives the example. A strong man can look in any direction while carrying a heavy burden on his head. Similarly, the perfect man can keep his gaze constantly fixed on God while carrying the burden of worldly duties. Then Sri Ramakrishna says, how one could be free from dangers. A boy holds on to a pillar and circles around it with headlong speed. While he is spinning, his attention is constantly fixed on the pillar. He knows that if he lets go his hold upon it, he will fall and hurt himself very badly. Similarly, the wise householder holds on to the pillar of God, keeps his mind fixed on Him, and performs his worldly duties. Thus is he free from all dangers. Then Sri Ramakrishna said, how to conduct oneself in this world. He compares it to the boat. Let the boat stay on the water, there is no harm. But let not water get into the boat, lest the boat sink. Similarly, there is no harm if the devotees live in the world, provided they let not worldliness enter into their mind. Clay, in its natural state, it can be molded into any form, but burnt clay cannot. Similarly, spiritual truths cannot be impressed upon hearts that have been burnt by the fire of lust. Then he says, the magnetic needle always points towards the north, whatever the direction in which the ship is sailing. That's why the ship doesn't lose her course. Similarly, if the mind of a person is always turned towards God, like the compass needle, he will steer clear of every danger. Earnestness is the only thing necessary. Long must you struggle in the water before you learn to swim. In the pure is reflected the Lord as His sun in the clear mirror. God shines when ego dies. Like unto a miser that longeth for gold, let thy heart long for the Lord. Call on the Divine Mother. She will come to you and take you up in her arms. These are some of the pearls which Sri Ramakrishna has given to us. How nice it would be to meditate upon these ideas. Sri Ramakrishna said, if you practice 1/16th of what I have told, you will get everything. Everything. Then why has he given so much? So that all people can have their share. Everyone can have his share of spiritual power in Sri Ramakrishna. Anybody, everyone has got a share. Sri Ramakrishna is like the ocean. Each one is like a vessel. According to your capacity, you fill up the water. Some vessels are very big, some are medium sized, some are very small. According to the capacity of the container, water can be taken. So, what is needed is you must aspire for. Aspiration is important. Sri Ramakrishna's life started with aspiration. What was that? I must see God in this very life, not after death. After death is all right. But if you realize it when you are alive in this body of flesh and bones, then it is worth. That's what is called Jivan Mukta. Try to see God in this very life. Try to experience the truth. Enjoy the bliss of God before you pass away from this mortal frame. And Sri Ramakrishna has given the paths. He has shown the path. He has shown very clearly. He has prepared everything, all the dishes he has done. Only you have to sit and eat the food. You should not expect that God should open our mouth and thrust the food into the mouth. Some people do expect that also. With these words I conclude my talk. Thank you very much. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunakto Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. May the Divine Spirit protect us, guide us, give us strength and right understanding. May we not hate one another. May love and harmony be with us all. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. May the Divine Lord protect us. May He nourish us. May we work in harmony with great vigor. May our study be illuminating and fruitful. May we not hate each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.